All right, welcome to another episode in a new series of a podcast wherein we talk to senior engineers in the tech industry around the state of hiring. Today we have Shubham with us here. Hey Shubham, what's
Hey
up?
Swapnil,
How's it going?
yeah, good. How is it going for you?
All good, man. So just to set the context, can you tell our listeners how many interviews have you taken so far?
Yes, I have taken like quite a few. I think more than 200 as till now.
Wow, wow. Okay, 200. This is the most that we have ever gotten on this podcast. So we're going to get a lot of insights from you. Off the top of your head, like who is your most memorable candidate? Have you ever interviewed someone who completely surprised you, either in a good way or a bad way? Like
Yeah,
what's going on in mind?
yes. I like the candidates who basically open and like passionate about doing the things, solving the things crazily, even they don't know the answers. I personally like the candidates who are willing to go for a try, open for discussion, open for brainstorming, and coming towards the things that we are looking for. I personally always prefer like open-ended problems as well, and something that we are facing as well, so that they also can get an idea of what kind of challenges they are going to work into and whether they interest or not.
Okay. Okay. And if you flip it over, what's the worst experience you have had? Anyone like that? Does that come to mind?
The worst experience are where people are not able to understand the problem itself. They are not curious and understanding the things. It is like, okay, coming up with the approaches, understanding the problem and coming out with the approaches. It can be, and like we can discuss on the pros and cons as we go ahead, because even in as you work, that's how you approach, right? You think about something, then you think about its pros and cons, and then you think about similarly other approach, removing those cons. So similarly in the interviews, if the worst experiences are where people are not able to go via this approach. Second thing I look for is like around like this curiosity, party specifically like in terms of like, okay, how they are basically remaining up to date with the new technologies, with the things they are doing. Because when you are working, right, it's you tend to basically focus on your whole coding of inside the company, inside the team specifically. So you don't get a chance to innovate regularly until unless company has some specific slots for that particularly. So I generally tend to ask people how they are keeping up to date, what's the way they are learning and innovating themselves, or how they are improving themselves. It can be inside the team, outside the team, even like reading blogs or anything. Should not be a matter, but it's very important to learn. Right? Some people read books, some people read blogs, some people just have YouTube videos or something. So people who doesn't do, I think, anything, not a major red flag, but I consider them as like less curiousness. That is something I also value, that people are curious to learn new things. It's now the AI world, right?
Yeah.
So my simple question to the candidate is like, okay, how you are leveraging your AI in any form to
Right.
boost your productivity, in what parts, right? So like some people just say like totally no like to it, like okay, they are just still using Google and not even like using ChatGPT for even search and all. So that becomes like a red flag, right? Like even if you are not exploring, it's not just about ChatGPT. I'm fine like if they are using any other AI tools, right? And you can use AI tools for any of the things, like your coding research, your providing, coming up with the pros and cons, like evaluation purposes for writing your code that you have in your mind, right? To write it in a fast manner, to write the test, to use them as a reviewer, or to write in a documentation, right? So people who are not doing at all anything, we have started considering as a red flag, that people should be like aware and transition to these new technologies, and they should be curious in general. If candidates are not using any of these tools for any of their purposes, like it can be any. Ideally, we want candidate to like use AI across and make them as assistant in everything, right? As long until unless you have practiced that part, like you can't become efficient in any of these. Right? Even Google search is like an acquired technique which every candidate learns over time. So it's similar in the AI world. Initially, you may not get the right results in either in development, either in research or something like. But over time, as you learn over it, I think you understand that. So candidates who just say that even in started heavily in 2024, say it's now 2 years, and if they are still not using it for any of the things, it's a wrong thing. So that's one of the question.
Yeah, using AI is definitely a mandate across all teams now. All of my friends
Yes.
I'm talking
Yes.
to, they are saying they're at least 30% more productive. And like that's the bare minimum. Like some are even more productive. Depends on how you're using it,
Yes.
what
Yes.
workflows you're using. How are people around you using AI? Like, are you using it to write code or for testing or in some other ways as well? How are you personally using AI?
It's been like quite a few years now since I have been in AI field. So personally, I've started a little bit earlier. So I think I'm leveraging AI for everything, including writing docs, presentations, writing code reviews, even writing PRs. Obviously, I know the limitations related to stuff as well, and that you will learn over time. And like with different models coming in, you have to like continuous learning. So like what things were not working in one model can work on something other. So it's important to continuously learn new and new things, right? And I think now the MCP servers have come, right? So
Right.
your search has become increased. Now with this AI agents, specifically like now with the cursor, right? Like I think before they were development tools, but with cursor they have like changed the coding thing overall. Similarly, Code Rapid as well, right? Like for the reviews purposes, was great. I've recently exploring Lovable
Right.
tool. It's great in desire of such tools. Previously, I've experimented before this, right, including Claude Code and others. But on the level at which it is working is like for developing the early prototypes of the website and applications is really, really astonishing to see. So yeah, so I think that it's like great and like not just around this, like even like in the remote communication era, right? Like to but not just documentation, even to provide some post or like in the Slack or LinkedIn. I think people use for LinkedIn and writing appropriate posts, but even for communication, let's say with product managers, engineers, and others, right? Like you write on Slack, you write on Notion, you write on various other things, right? I use like LLM tools to write efficiently so that there is less back and forth because sometimes what we think we have passed on the information on the context, it takes time, right? So I generally tend to use also like AI for that. Like I pass on the context which you have anyway have to pass in your
Right.
post as well, but I ask AI to write so that all the context is passed appropriately as well in the
Yeah,
right manner.
documentation is really underrated. I remember as a
Mm.
developer, like writing the documentation was one of the biggest pain points.
Biggest.
नहीं लिखना मुझे.
Correct, correct.
So yeah, be it in any format, be it wiki page or the readme file or whatever, you're always like, huh, I know this, like why do I need to write this? And
Yeah,
it's just boring work.
yeah,
Of course it's required because the other person who is going to take over the work, if you have not documented it down, then they will sort of eat your brain.
correct.
How does this work and all? So always good to write it down, but like AI has just killed writing. Like, it's so amazing. Now it's almost at that level wherein if it's removed, we'll be like very, very disappointed. Now
Correct.
it's like fully integrated into workflows.
Correct. Yes, and now wikis are getting converted into like these memory docs,
Hmm.
which I think I'm not sure how many people are using it, but I think that's the future, which is like a combined thing of like readmes as well as your wikis or your coding docs, basically your comments. So it's like a mixture of that. So it helps across. Like you don't need to go through multiple channels code as well as wikis to understand a particular piece. You can just write in your memory docs, which even like while you are chatting from, let's say, in your cursor via Claude or anything, that memory documentation can help you provide, navigate those LLM tools appropriately. Also for developers to understand the code pieces, the design also effectively. Instead of writing these code docs, wikis, and like your code, I think now it is going into a single format at a structured place, just like Get Docs was there, but no one used to manage that. But now with this memory docs, the trend is getting changed, and I think it is very, very useful.
Yeah, most likely the listeners won't be using memory docs. So can you like explain like M5?
Yes, yes.
What does memory doc mean? If someone is
Yeah, memory doc is nothing but in LLMs, generally, whatever you have used, like in ChatGPT or Claude or any other tools that you have used. So there is a memory, right? Like which these LLM tools understand based on the prompts that you are writing or passing it to it, and also the kind of responses that you are trying to get. So they are updating their memories, right? So that like whenever a new prompt is provided to them, they can understand that and use their memory to provide the responses in the desired manner. So similarly, in the code doc, while you are writing in the code, just like you used to have readme.md
right,
markdown files.
right,
So similarly, you are creating MD files for your code. So whenever you are prompting the Cursor AI or like any other tool, AI editing tool that you are using, so they have these options to write and store these prompts and the memory inside it into these docs. So now you can just pass that, okay, read these MD files or read these memory doc files, and then you pass the prompt so that it uses a mixture of both to provide the response in the desired form.
got it.
So, so for example, let's say you are coming up like writing a development. Let's say a new task has come up. You write the code. You raise a PR. After that, I would advise is like update your MD file.
Hmm.
So just imagine, okay, you have a PR description, but let's say for a new person who is coming into looking into that code, PRs still will be show a very small piece about that launch. But overall, from a code piece, it will be hard for the people to understand. All right.
Right.
So if you can just update like the documentation for that file there itself, and just ask the LLM tool to update the responsibility on the current changes that you have done in the PR. So now that documentation, any new developer or anyone can use to understand the full context of it. Even the LLM tool itself. When you ask the question about that file, they can just read that file. Similar to Java docs, any other docs that we used to write, but it was not actively managed
Hmm.
because it takes time to write. First of all, we all know the importance of it. Now with this LLM things, like those are become easy, so it's very important to keep updating those docs and with a very easy thing, and also not just for yourself but also for LLMs, right? If they instead of reading the entire code file, if you can just provide the doc, which is 2 3 liner, they
Right.
can have a much better understanding of that code rather than like overall. So in this way, also they are able to gather more context
Hmm.
of the entire project as compared to like 1 or 2 files
Right.
because of the limitation in the input tokens part.
Makes sense. Yes, it's almost like you put the memory from the LLM chat window into Markdown files, and then the prompts you're writing in the cursor rules file, right? Wherein you're
Yes.
telling, hey, here is where your memory resides. Use this first, then do the changes, and then whatever you learn from your processing, again save it back. This is almost like
Correct.
a database of sorts, and there's no limit on how much you can store because the
Yes.
context
Yes.
windows are increasing anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's called as memory docs. It's a database which can be used like by the LLM tools and also ourselves as well. Imagine like a README for the project and the entire code base as well. So how great it would have been. So it's that only, and you can store any format of infinite number of MD files. You just need to link that while passing on the context.
Awesome, awesome. Let's now move to like a fun section, rapid fire. So we have a few questions. The only thing is don't think. So let's go. Can you tell me about bug that you have shipped, like production उड़ाए हो कभी?
Um, Unfortunately, no. But yeah, I think I have made high impacting, at least 7 to impact I have created during Amazon. I definitely remember that time when I was in Peppy team. I was working with you guys. There was some bug which caused a downtime in the affiliate market overall for the Amazons. It was a very minor bug, so yeah, fortunately we were able to roll it out quickly back without much impact.
These are always like minor things which lead to major impact. But can you share like what was it caused such an outrage?
Yeah, I remember it was something like related to null or something. These are the only bugs that creates these huge impact. Yeah, it was related to some null issue only.
Correct. Okay, cool. Going to the next one. If you were not a developer, then what would you be doing? Another way to frame this is if AI did everything that you're doing, including
Mhm.
writing code, then what would you do for work?
Yeah, I think I would be directing AI what to do. So yeah, I think I like solving customer problems. So I will be doing product management and telling AI to do so
AI
and so.
management.
Do the AI development part for me.
All right, all right. Going back to the debugging thing, like you said, ki the smallest of things create biggest impacts. Like, what's the longest time you have spent debugging something which turned out to be very small?
Yeah, I think I've spent a lot of time in general, especially when I was a developer during debugging. I remember we took an entire month for debugging a specific problem while I was in Amazon. It was kind of a major issue, right? And it was creating problems at across multiple surfaces. Since we were part of the Pappy team, so basically the entire system was responsible to power all the things, offer, searches. So using our APIs, anyone can use the Amazon retail website themselves. Since it was impacting across the surfaces, right? It was not a direct full impact, but like the total impact across issues. So it took a lot of time debugging. So it was related to threading problem. So basically for that, obviously it is not easily reproducible generally, like whenever there are threading issues.
Right.
So it took time. It required me to learn. Also, I was very new, so like learned about those garbage collection things
Hmm.
and other things, right? And
So this was in Java then.
it was in Java, like Amazon code base was in Java only. We were able to figure out the exact problem. It was a basic configuration set. Ultimately, we have set up Java garbage collection parameters. So one of the parameters was wrongly set, which was creating those issues. So the solution was simple, but to dive deep and to got into that from customer impacting to threads to then garbage collection and then to that configuration. Yeah, that took like lot of a whole bunch of time. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I can imagine it must have taken a lot of time to even reproduce the issue, right? Because it's not like a null issue, like it's a very specific scale issue.
yes, yes. It used to happen like when we used to do the deployments generally. Yeah. So we used to do deployments and only production developments. It was creating an issue.
Yeah.
So it was also difficult to reproduce, even though we have one box and everything in Amazon.
Hmm.
But it was not reproducible during one box deployments. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Cool. So since you are sitting on a like a workspace area, like can you show us like a random desk item around you?
I think there's nothing. I think I have like standing desk also,
Oh,
and like some book stand.
nice, nice.
So yeah,
Any favorite books of yours that you have read or currently reading?
I generally don't read books for the work part. Like stories books. So I think Hunger Games and there's a lot of things. For the work part, yeah, I think I generally tend to read the blogs and the YouTube videos.
Got it. Got it. Okay, last rapid fire question. What's one thing coding has taught you about life?
That's a very interesting question. What coding has told me in general, or like work has told me, like the problems are never finished. Even if you try to rush to solve one problem, immediately the next problem will come. So don't try to rush.
Interesting.
And,
Interesting. Interesting.
solving any problem. So enjoy that problem, try to solve that thing, and then move on to others. You will never have an end to any of the problems.
Right. काफी philosophical answer. The journey is the destination.
There's no destination.
Yes, exactly, exactly. The journey is what you have. So, just a couple more questions. This is more towards people who are just starting out. How would you start today in the age of AI? Like, our world was very different 10 years back when we started learning coding and everything. That world was very different. There was like W3 schools, there was Bucky tutorials, and
Correct.
a bunch of other things, and you had to do everything, learn the hard way, so to say. But if knowing all you know now, and if you have to start today in the age of AI, how would you do that?
Everything I would say, like when you are in college, I think the importance, like traditionally you do all these programming contest participation. I think instead of that, I would recommend to do actively participation in like building some projects, um,
Interesting.
like anything. I think whatever idea you have, I think now we have the thing is about idea. If you have any idea, you have to learn and find out the right set of tools to execute it. I
Right.
think you have all the things in place where you don't need anyone's help to even execute it. So I think just build it out, share it out, and gather the feedback. So I think in this way, you can learn everything from using the right tools, making them as an assistant, and to use it properly. So I think that's a practice that you need for cleaning up during the interviews as well as during your work as well. Like any problem, you have to think about like the execution strategy, how to solve that problem. That AI will not going to solve that. But once you are clear in the mind how to go about it, then you should also know how the right set of tools to use to execute in a quick fashion. So that will be my recommendation. I think everyone has ideas, so just go it out. Just like I think many people already build great ideas. They have Git repos for various ideas. Just keep continuing doing that. But now think big ideas because for making a big idea possible is easy. Executing a big idea is even easy.
Definitely. The accessibility that AI has given all of us is really amazing. Like, if you just know how to think and how to take down a problem, then you can sort of give each task to each of the special tools built for that particular purpose and then leverage. Like, basically, you can stand on the shoulders of giants.
Correct.
And so, like, any big idea is also not out of reach. But yeah, coming to the last question, like for people who are seeking jobs, either their first job or looking to transition, what would be your like overall tips for job seekers?
Yeah, I think like for the early job seekers, especially, I think it's a first of all like a difficult market
For sure.
going on. So like definitely it's difficult, but I would say like I think it's very important to build your profile, not in terms of resume, in terms of branding yourself, especially in the initial days. Showcase your work, like the experiments that you are doing. Try to reach out to the connections as much as possible and look for Instagram, then YouTube across, right? And don't focus on the big fancy job. I think even if you go for a job which is like 10,000 rupees per month, right? Just do it. Not focus on like getting a job which is like earning like a 1 lakh rupees a month from the get go.
Right.
Yeah, right? Because the first barrier is to gain the experience.
True.
Like it is very easy nowadays, especially to go from a 10,000 rupees job to, let's say, a 1 lakh or 5 lakh per month job as well. But to initially get into that 1 or 2 years of experience is very, very critical. So
Correct.
people don't focus on the money, focus on the experience, and focus on getting any opportunity in the market instead of getting very selective in the start. You will have ample time to be selective in your data time. But in the start, not giving job seeking, the focus should be on like working and just gaining experience. The qualities and the learnings that you have already as an individual, right? Where is not going to go. It's about the experience in the culture, working as a team. That is all that you need to learn and focus on in the first 2 3 years of your life. That should be the focus.
I think that's amazing advice because everyone else, every place else, you'll see people saying the opposite, which is just do DSA target FANG as a first job. But the success rate of that is not really very high. A more feasible, more doable, a more successful for everyone approach is get your foot in the door, which is what you said. Doesn't matter what the pay is, as long as it is paying, you are pretty much learning and building your foundations. And then, like you said, careers are 30 years, 40 years long. So like you can keep learning, keep growing every few years, every, let's say, 3 years, 5 years, you can keep switching. Nowadays people are also switching in 2 years as well, but yeah, you can keep switching and then can land whatever job you want over time. So yeah, I think incremental approach works better rather than just trying to get your dream in one jump. Like that sounds good on paper, but yeah, it doesn't happen.
Correct.
Cool, cool. With that, we have come to the end. I loved your overall philosophical advice of the journey is the destination. I think that is something really a very something that you know, but it's always helpful to get reminded of that जल्दी करके कुछ होगा नहीं, जल्दी करके और काम मिलेगा. That's it. You'll never feel like कि हाँ अब तो कुछ काम है नहीं. जैसे आज फ्राइडे है तो we know कि हाँ भाई वीकेंड पे भी काम है ही, then मंडे को भी है ही, and then अगले महीने भी है ही, अगले साल भी है ही. So pretty much the work is never ending. So yeah, better to enjoy the days rather than saying कि नहीं जो 6 महीने बाद वेकेशन होगा उसमें will enjoy that really doesn't happen. And yeah, the overall tip for job seekers as well is just get into the IT workforce as soon as possible and then keep going. So yeah, with that we'll end this recording. Thanks Shubham for joining in.
Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, it's always a
Awesome.
pleasure talking to you.